I was left for dead. That's how my journey in entrepreneurship started. I left the corporate world and my finance and MBA degrees behind me to share my story. Welcome to That Entrepreneur Show, where resilience meets hustle. Let's build and learn from our guest now.
How much money could you make if you didn't have the same turnover that you did? How much money could you make if morale was higher? And I never wanted to leave opportunity on the table, so it scared me. And I started to think about how I was saying what I was saying. And I learned how to have the same impact, but not do it in a way that belittles the person, but brings out the best in them.
Here we go. We're back with an awesome live stream. We're heading to North Carolina today to sit down with Donald. Thank you for joining us here on That Entrepreneur Show.
I'm glad to be here, my friend, and I'm looking forward to chopping it up with you and sharing some insights.
Yep, and behind the scenes, we're laughing. I'm wearing my Jets shirt. He's got his Steelers shirt. We took his quarterback, but I'm not sure anything could really help us get past the Jets curse. But he's a powerhouse C-suite exec, spent a lot of years and gaining a lot of knowledge. He's looking to give it back to you. So buckle up for an awesome show. And if it's your first time with us or you're returning, welcome back. I appreciate you helping keep this show a top 2.5% global show. And we can't do it without you and great guests like Donald today. As I mentioned, powerhouse executive that's got a wealth of knowledge for entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs to not just focus on building success now, but lifelong success. And before I get started here, got to show love to John Ford. EmpathySet.com has a new app and card set to help every entrepreneur stay mentally healthy. I like to go this show in phases, Donald, before, right now, and after. Going back in time, did you always want to be an entrepreneur, or what put you to where you are today?
I always wanted to be an entrepreneur before I knew what it was called. And most entrepreneurs have their lemonade stand or candy sales in school. And my entry to entrepreneurship was in the 5th grade, selling Jolly Ranchers and learning that if I went to Woolworths, this dates me, in Pennsylvania, right? And I bought a bag of Jolly Ranchers and I sold them for $0.25. And then there started to be competition. So then I went to the grocery store and started buying Jolly Ranchers by the pound, decreased my cost, maintained my margin. And I learned about competition and about regulation. I got sent to the principal's office. But early on, money for me was not about the material thing. It was about the choices, right? And I saw my parents as I was growing up and I said, we're having a lot of conversations in the house about money. When I go to church, I'm hearing a lot of conversations about money. When I watch TV. And so I said, you know what? I think it's better to have some than not. What's the best way to do that? And that's what started to percolating even as a young age that drove me towards entrepreneurship.
Love everything you just said, and just seeing a quote similar to this where money is not the goal, it's a tool for freedom for you to do the things you want. I think you highlighted that perfectly, unless I misunderstood you.
No, it's right, spot on. And the thing I would add, right, is if you chase money, I've not seen people make it like that entrepreneurship. What you're wanting to do is chase the value you can drive right from the idea you have, and money follows that. Because it's going to need to be something that drives you enough to push through the hard days, push you through the pivots, push you through the fundraising, whatever you're doing to grow. And those things have to be driven deeper than just a pure financial gain. You have to believe that what you're doing is going to create a positive change for the people that you're selling to. And when you do that, you have a different rhythm to what you're doing than if you're just chasing money.
I agree with you 100%. When I was just chasing money for my finance degree and then my MBA, and while that works for many, many people, for me, I did not find fulfillment in it. And that was it.
I think that, a lot of times we get inundated with the material levels of our economy, but actually most people are emotionally driven. So if you think about money and goals, when I wanted to make my first $100,000, it wasn't to buy a new car. It's because I knew if I was making $100,000, I could take care of my young family differently. I knew if I got multiple 6 figures, I could put money away for college for all my kids. Motivation for the money was attached to an emotional trigger, and that created staying power in my goals, right? And so you get somebody that has an emotive way, even something as simple as, I want my mom and dad to be proud of me. All you have to do is take your goals and link it to an emotional trigger that drives you, and you're going to have staying power different than most.
I love that. I'm putting that right here in the show notes when we go live because I love the way you said that. Link the goals to emotional triggers. When I could speak for myself, at least once I found something I'm truly passionate about, growing and being okay with being terrible at it in the beginning and really, really awful. And I found something where I've been able to do it now over 5 years with the podcasts and the books. And of course, I'm hoping one or two more, right? But with the podcasts, I leave my early shows up to show people that, hey, I was really bad. Like I didn't know how to lead a conversation. I was robotic. I was the perfectionist in me where I sounded forced. Now I help you help me, right? We do the information sheet. I know how you can add value. It's smooth. Love that again. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Well, now I want to kind of hop into what you're doing right now. You're the C-suite all-star. You've had a lot of great experience. But before we get into maybe present day, what's a great lesson learned you've had along this ride in this higher level executive experience?
Oh man, thank you for that question. Something very specific comes to mind. Your network is your net worth. If you're going to do something big, if you're going to do something that's meaningful and matters, you're not going to be able to do it on your own. You're going to need advice, counsel, finance from different folks. But if you tap into a network that you curate, that you build over the years, that you add value back to other folks, now when I pick up the phone and I need a quick question answered from somebody that is not only an AI engineer, but an AI savant, they return that phone call and said, Don, whatever I can do to help. If I need somebody that is working with entrepreneurs on financing, because I've been through it, but if I'm working with a new entrepreneur that's learning how to pitch, to fundraise and different things, to be able to get them in an advice circle that matters. There's so many things that you can do if you cultivate that network. Now, how do you do it?
Right.
Fun, events locally, great. That's fantastic. But building your personal brand and then loaning that personal brand to others that you like their stuff is an easy way digitally to start building that audience and that network that you need when you're launching something. And then what I found is all of us have superpowers. All of us have things we do good. Don't be selfish with it. Be available to be helpful to others. And then when you need to pull that card back in a year, 2 years, you've cultivated so many friendships that your network is real, authentic, and not vanity metrics on LinkedIn followers. It is hundreds of people you can actually pick up the phone and call that be willing to use their talents and their treasure to help you.
Love what you said there too. You're on fire with LinkedIn. I get a lot of, as I'm sure you do, a lot of requests from people you may not know. So I started saying, hey, here's my calendar link and I have something special, like a 10-minute call where I'm willing to sacrifice 10 minutes because I want to see if we can actually help each other more than that particular, just one extra follower. And you'll be surprised how few, maybe you won't be surprised how few people actually book the call. Very, very few.
Very few. When I speak, whether it's in front of a crowd of 100 people, 1,000 people, 5,000 people, or 10, I always offer, reach out to me on LinkedIn, I'll reach back. If you need a helping hand, let me know. Because the percentage is so small, the people that do reach out are serious, but I'm never truly inundated, right? Because most people give that conversational, cool, cocktail party, cool. They're not really, like, they're being overly polite for no reason.
Right.
But then the ones that reach back and reach out, amazing. Give a quick example. I was hosting a people analytics conference in Toronto. I was the host for the 2 days of the conference. Met a lot of folks. The head of people analytics for the NBA was there, Southwest Airlines, all this stuff. At the airport, I met one of my panelists. Again, we were both sitting, our planes were delayed, who was former data analytics component at Google and a part of their Project Aristotle on psychological safety, which is a topic I'm very focused on in leadership, is creating psychological safety. We're now in each other's network. We have a follow-up call to talk about how we can do some joint consulting together, some podcasting. And I learned more in that 30 minutes about the data side of it, how to analyze it, than if I'd paid somebody $5,000 for consulting. It's a way that your network pays you back when you give into the network. I was the host, didn't charge that event to do it, but I made a lot of great connections that are going to help my other business interests.
I think you inspired everyone on here. I hope to take advantage of free offers from executive leaders who go out there and offer their time because you never know how much you'll get out of it. And I have to do a quick shout out to my board, my advisory board, who shows up for me every month. These people who believe in my mission and now have helped me not even recognize where I was not only a year ago, but 2 and beyond. So And I also, another area, talking about free resources, with podcast production, I realized because I was a solopreneur, bootstrapper, there were no funds and resources to do things like expert production or any help at all. So I stepped back and launched Pod O'Clock, a free podcast teaching some of the coaching practice step by step. Then I did the book. I want to start a podcast because I realized there are different price points for different people. Some people don't want to retain information with a book. Some don't want to hear a podcast. They want to hear me speak on an interview with someone like you who's giving so much back. And I also want to talk about, because you briefly included, workplace, right? Going to have a healthy workplace. How do you cultivate a healthy workplace culture?
So one of the things that's really important, and this is critical for entrepreneurs, because for you to scale your business, you got to be able to recruit, reward, and retain top talent.
Right.
So you build a culture when, one, you have a dream big enough that other people can see their personal goals in your dream and vision, right?
Yep.
That's number one. And number two, you want to create an environment where you have your team working more in their area of strength than area of weakness. If you build your job rec, you build your job profile, and somebody can do 70% of the job, knock it out of the park, well, then make that 70% that they're amazing at the job. And that person that is reinforced with hitting doubles and singles every day because they're working in their zone of excellence, right? And when people are winning, it's easier for them to be collaborative with others. When people are struggling, that's what lends into pettiness and backbiting and all of this noise. The second thing that's important is your leadership behaviors, right? You have to model the inclusive leadership. You have to model the balance between empathy and economics that you want in the business. So if you understand people, then one of the currencies today that's really powerful is respect, recognition, and rewards. Rewards cost a little money sometimes, right? But there's nobody that can't afford in their budget respect and recognition. So make sure you're doing all three of those things, because people want to give their best for people that have high standards for them, that understand that the leader of the organization wants them to develop as a professional, as well as the outcomes for the business. And when you do those things with folks, now you create the foundation for being able to drive a great culture through that.
Amazing advice all around. I put here in the notes, part of my last bullet point, because I'm out of room already. Empathy versus economics. I never heard that phrase to describe what the decisions you have to make as a CEO in your business, which clients you renew, which clients you take on. I've had lessons learned already with that situation. So definitely an amazing highlight. Everyone, be sure to stick around for just a little bit longer. We'll find out exactly how to find him online, his websites, everything included. But also, he is an expert in another area, building inclusive leadership. How do we head down that road?
So one of the things when you think about inclusive leadership, we're all different, right? Let's just use generational differences, right? Gen Z versus millennials versus Gen X. Well, Gen Z has this label of lazy, selfish, different things like that. That's a narrative out there. When I interview for a poll I was doing, Gen Zers, it's really not about that. It's about they believe their ideas matter. They crave to be heard. They don't actually think that all of their ideas need to be executed, but they feel like they need to be a part of the conversation more based on their ideation, not based on the number of years they've been with the business. Number two is they crave mentorship. And if they're not getting that connective tissue with their manager or boss, then they view that as a negative. I'm not important. I'm not valuable. But if you flip it and you explain context of why you're asking them to do what they're doing, you get higher engagement. Now, inclusive leadership is about leaders understanding and learning that. Let's think about folks that are neurodiverse, right? All you have to think about is that we all learn differently. So I may be able to go to a meeting 10 minutes before, look over the briefing doc, and I'm ready to go engage in the meeting. Well, other people need a day before to read the material, do a little research, get their thoughts together, and then they'll be highly participative in the meeting. We have to think about the way each of us consume information and be more thoughtful as inclusive leaders, that we're all not the same cookie cutter approach, but we can all be highly productive if, as a leader, you take a step back and personalize your relationships with each of your team members. It's not hard to do, but you have to be intentional to do it. And most leaders fall down because we fall in love with the hustle. So we're backed up, calendar, and we don't leave those 10 to 15 minute moments where we can be a little bit more thoughtful.
Great advice all around, everyone. This guy, you've been knocking it out of the park. I'm glad we had the chance to connect. And I think now, if there's anyone out here building a business already, you're already in the trenches. These two areas can help save you a lot of time in the back end with the advice that he just gave you now, building the correct culture, building the correct team in place. But now let's talk what's next here. What do you have going on for the rest of this year?
So one of the things that's really exciting is I'm in the earnout phase from an organization that I was just sold. And so I'm thinking about kind of what do I want to do next, right? Do I want to build with this organization? Do I want to start something different? And here's what I'm really excited about. I'm doing a lot more work with helping founders build their personal brand. One of the secret sauces is not how good your product is. It's how many people know you and trust you, and then they'll hear about your product. So one of the things I've seen in the startup space is the underinvestment in the personal branding efforts of the founders and the C-suite leaders. People do business with who they know, like, and trust. And so you got to build that into your strategy. And I'm helping a lot of executives do that, and I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Well, I can see the smile on your face. I know you are. If you're catching us on live stream, you see that. If you're in the audio, you definitely hear it in his voice as well. But as we get ready to wrap up, I can't close it out without asking you if you could choose any entrepreneur, dead or alive, to sit down with, pick their brain, maybe help you with this next step in your life. You're not sure. You need to bring in the expert. Who are you choosing?
He would be alive, and it would be Gary Vaynerchuk. The way that he synthesizes brand building, marketing, social, and then the way that he has a matter of fact way to deliver, that's who I would want to spend time, because I think there's a lot of great entrepreneurs, but he usually creates things in enough bite-sized pieces of content that if I got a few hours with him, it would be pretty dynamic, right? It'd be like 10 hours, 20 hours with someone else, the way he processes information. So that would be the answer there. Give a shout out to Gary.
I know since he's a Jets fan, you're not going to want to go to the Meadowlands and hang out with him. Where would the meeting go down if you could pick that location too?
Well, man, I would bring him to Raleigh, North Carolina, and take him to dinner at a place called Heron's, which is one of the nice restaurants here. Get a private room, get him at whatever wine he likes to drink. I understand he used to sell wine, and pick his brain for a couple of hours.
Love that story too, where he takes that brand to the next level from being a wine, little small shop to globally known, and something he knows all about. Today, our guest, globally known. He's done so much. And I want to thank you so much for spending some time with us here on That Entrepreneur Show. Even though he's a Steelers fan, we're going to show him love right now, right? Where can we find you online, company? And then, of course, you talked about what you're doing now in the personal development side for these kids. Let's slide out that too.
Yeah, you can contact me and reach out at donaldthompson.com, and then also on LinkedIn. And then my podcast is High Octane Leadership in an Empathetic World. And anywhere you listen to podcasts, you'll find me there.
Let's talk about that right now. Let's hear more about your podcast.
So one of the things that I wanted to do is help executives balance empathy and economics. And so we talk about leadership, high octane leadership, driving the growth, building your brand, all the things. But how do you do that with a people first mindset so that you can actually build something with scale? I do a blend of having guests on the show or just giving personal stories, testimonies, and points of education about things I've learned, and mostly the things that I've lacked, the problems, the oddities. 10 years ago, for example, right? I didn't know about inclusive leadership, empathetic leadership. I was hard charging, former sales guy, former college athlete, just driving the number. Well, a business coach of mine of 10 years ago said, Donald, how much money could you make if you didn't have the same turnover that you do? How much money could you make if morale was higher? And I never wanted to leave opportunity on the table, so it scared me. And I started to think about how I was saying what I was saying. And I learned how to have the same impact, but not do it in a way that belittles the person, but brings out the best in them. And that is a skill that is worth working on for all leaders, but high octane leaders in particular.
Wow. Well, I think that might be the teaser before the show starts now. That is an absolutely incredible show. Started out fire, ended up really, really great. So everyone, be sure to connect with Donald. One more time, where can we find you online?
DonaldThompson.com or on LinkedIn.
DonaldThompson.com, and add his name on LinkedIn as well. As you can tell today, he's someone that you want to add to your network, and he's got a lot of value to share. So thank you for sharing it here on That Entrepreneur Show. I want to thank you all for tuning in to another show. For those on video or audio, thank you so much for helping keep this show a top 2.5% global show. Be sure to show his podcast some love too. Another great podcast to add to your queue. and it's hard to find consistent hosts, and it looks like he's got a great show out there today. My name is Vincent A. Lancey. Connect with me online anywhere with my name or vincentalancey.com. Want to show love to John Ford one more time with his empathyset.com. A lot of great stuff he's doing out for the communities. And with that, we're signing off today. Donald, thank you so much for taking time to start your day with me here on That Entrepreneur Show.
Thanks for having me, Vincent. This has been great.